All right, my dear friends, welcome back to another lecture of your favorite subject, financial reporting. And in this session, we shall be discussing a very important standard, which is that of revenue. So I want you to pay your entire focus, right? If you're binge watching the lectures, like take a rest if you want of 5 minutes, but then watch this lecture with utmost focus, like any other lecture. All right, this is a very interesting standard. It's a very fun standard to learn and understand, as well as this has a good significance in exams and even after exams in your professional life. All right, this is one such standard which will be used in every more often than not in every company, because every company will have a revenue, right? That is what company works for, a revenue model, right? To earn some money, to earn revenue. So this is one such standard which is applicable to any company and every company, every books of accounts, right? So we need to have a really good hold over this, not just for exams, but for our practical life as well. All right, so let's just get started. Now, revenue, before starting the questions and understanding technical stuff, it works on a 5-step approach model. All right, 5-step approach recognizing, or there's a 5-step approach to recognize revenue. How do we say this? See, let's just say there's a transaction. Okay, it goes to a filter of 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes to the filter of 5 steps, which helps us to determine what to recognize, what amount to recognize, when to recognize, and more importantly, how to recognize revenue. When any transaction which we think is bringing cash flow to us is that of a revenue nature, we pass it through a 5-step model. All right, and then we decide that what amount will be recognized as revenue, when to recognize this as revenue, and how to recognize that earnings as revenue. So these are those 5 steps. These is the heart and soul and backbone of this chapter, these 5 steps. All right, let's read them. An entity recognizes revenue by applying the following 5 steps. Identify the contract. All right. Identify the separate performance obligation. Performance obligation. Separate performance obligation. It's a very important phrase, important word. All right. Determine the transaction price. Identify the contract, identify the separate performance obligation, determine the transaction price. Okay. Allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation in the contract. Allocate the transaction price to performance obligations in contract. Recognize revenue when performance obligation is satisfied. If you understand these 5 steps, your entire chapter is done right now, right over here. After this, all we need to do is just solve questions. If we can understand all these 5 points, and we don't have to learn them. What am I saying? We understand them. Okay, let's start this process. What is the first point? Identify the contract. So let me denote this with a letter C. C for contract. Okay. Now for revenue to be recognized, there must be a contract. There should exist a contract between seller and the buyer, which will determine what all goods will you provide, what all services will you provide, what money will you get, what is the time limit, what is the specification of goods. You just cannot sell anything. There should be a contract. It can be a written contract, it can be a oral contract. See, if I ask you whether a contract should be written, you will say no. As per the legal language, a contract can also be oral. But in actual life, in practical life, can we really find something, a contract? How can we establish that the contract was established if it is oral? All right, so more often than not, contracts are in written. So first and foremost is we have to identify the contract which pertains to a particular revenue, which we are trying to figure out that how to record this particular transaction. Let's just say we have received $10,000 for providing some goods. Now there must exist a contract which determines what type of goods are being provided, what units of that goods are being provided, what are the different terms and conditions attached to this transfer of goods. What is this consideration? How is this consideration payable? Is it payable directly? Is it payable in certain time interval? Are these goods delivered directly in one go, or are they delivered over let's say again time intervals? There are so many points attached to, right, a transaction. So all those transactions must be, excuse me, why this gets stuck sometimes, just a second. All right, so a contract should always exist. Now second point is identify the separate performance obligation within a contract. Let me denote it with the letter P for performance obligation. Now what do we mean by performance obligation? See, revenue means you will be paid, you will be getting some consideration. Now can someone pay you consideration for doing nothing? You will get the consideration, you will earn the revenue only when you will do something, right? That can be providing certain goods, that can be providing certain services, that can be providing combination of goods and services. All right, that can be providing combination of goods and services. So what all are you supposed to provide in order to earn revenue is called performance obligation. What all are you obliged to do? All right, what all are you obliged to do? You get this? What all is your performance obligation? Performance obligation is what are you are obliged to perform. For instance, you have entered into a contract. See, this is your first step. In that, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to provide certain computers. All right. Also, you are supposed to provide training to employees to run those computers. You are supposed to provide after sales service, also called as AMC, annual maintenance contract. Annual maintenance AMC. Right now, let me just write this down. This AM. There's something wrong with this eraser, I guess. What's wrong with this eraser? Tell me. Okay, you are supposed to provide computers, you are supposed to provide trainings, and you are supposed to provide AMC, annual maintenance contract. Now this is one contract. Now it has how many elements? Computers are goods, training is services, AMC is again services, right? So these are different performance obligations. This is it's taking a bit of time, I guess. Yeah, it is. This is a separate performance obligation. This is a separate performance obligation. And this again is a service, is a separate performance obligation. All right, now this all are separate performance obligations which you are supposed to provide within the vicinity of this contract. So we need to identify what are separate performance obligations. Okay. Determine the transaction price. Now what do we say transaction price is? That what, excuse me, yeah. Let me just put it in the frame. Okay, determine the transaction price. Let me denote this with T. Transaction price. Now what do we mean by transaction price? Of course, we must be charging something to provide this array of goods and services, right? Let's say we have charged $10,000 for providing all the performance obligation, all the goods and services. All right, we have provided all the goods and services for $10,000. This is our transaction price. So we need to identify this within the contract. We need to determine that what is the amount that we are charging to provide these services and goods. All right. Fourth point is allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation in the contract. What does this say? Allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation in the contract. How do we do that? See, again, let me say that allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation within the contract. Now, all your friends can mug up this line. Allocate the transaction price to performance obligation in the contract. Allocate the transaction price to the performance obligations in the contract. They can keep on mugging it. But we are smart. What do we do? This is nothing. And if you can connect this, see, allocate the transaction price, point number 3, to performance obligation, point number 2, in the contract. This is going upwards. Here, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to allocate A. All right. So, let me clean this a bit. It's a little messy right now here. Yeah. So you are providing these services and goods for $10,000. Now what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to allocate this one price that is mentioned in the contract to different performance obligations, And how do we allocate them? We allocate them. This we will be learning in detail for sure, of course, just in the like next 15 minutes. But we allocate them on the basis of their standalone price. Now, what do I mean by standalone price? See, it's if we are providing goods, let me just erase this a bit. Yeah. Now here we are providing computer training and annual maintenance contract, right? We are providing all this together. But does that mean we will not be providing this individually to other clients? Right? Does this mean we can't provide this individually to other clients? Now, if we provide this individually to other clients, we must be charging something for sure for individual prices. Isn't it? Do you get this, guys? We must be charging some amount. So it may happen that if we provide these services individually, we may charge 3,000, let's say 4,000. Instead of 3,000, let's make, I don't know what's wrong with my PC, the system today. Seriously, it's hanging a bit. $4,000. For training, let's say it charges $3,500. And for AMC, let's just say another $3,000. These are standalone prices. Standalone prices. That is, if we provide these services separately. So what is the total that would be charged if these services are provided standalone separately? It becomes $10,500. But what is the transaction price? What is the transaction price that we are charging instead? We are charging $10,000. Why? Because we are providing this as a bundle of services, as a contract, right? This is what it happens when you take a bunch of services and goods from a supplier. They provide you a better deal because you are taking more services, right? So now we will, what is the transaction price? Transaction price is the amount which you are charging for the contract. This is your transaction price. All right. Now you will allocate this transaction price to these performance obligation in the ratio of standalone prices. In the ratio of standalone prices. All right. So how will be doing this? See, what is the standalone price? 4,000. What out of 10,500? So 10,000 into 4,000 divided by 10,500. This is how much? 100. Calculate. Come on. 3810 approximately. Again, we'll do the same thing with all the figures. Come on, calculate this for me. Quick, quick. Yes, I can hear you. Even if it's a pen drive class, it's a virtual class. Even then, I can hear you. Tell me the answer quickly. This is 10,000 into 3,500 divided by 10,500. This is 332. And what is the remaining amount? 3332. Excuse me. Yeah, 3332. What is the remaining amount? 2858. Now what have we done this? We have allocated the transaction price to performance obligations in the contract. This is the revenue which we will charge. This is the revenue. This is the revenue which we will charge for computers. This is the revenue which will be charged against trainings, and this is the amount which we will be charging against AMC as a revenue. All right, because the transaction price, this transaction price was for total amount. All right. All right. So now we have to go to next step, which is recognize revenue when or as a performance obligation is satisfied. Now, as soon as our each performance obligation gets satisfied, we will recognize the respective revenue. As soon as we hand over them computers, we will recognize this revenue. As soon as we complete trainings as per the contract, we will recognize this revenue. As soon as we perform the annual maintenance contract as per the provisions of the contract, we will recognize this revenue. All right, so here the keyword is recognize when a performance obligation is satisfied. So let us write R for recognize. So what is the code to remember this? CPTAR. Identify the contract, identify the performance obligations in the contract, determine the transaction price, allocate the transaction price to performance obligation in the contract, recognize the revenue when you complete performance obligation or when performance obligation is satisfied. All right. Now let us go through this illustration to understand this more practically. On 1st December 2011, Wade receives an order from a customer for a computer as well as 12 months of technical support. Oh, they are copying our examples. Okay, like this is a very common example of that of computer and other technical services that was used. So what are they doing? They receives an order for computer as well as 12 months of technical support. Wade delivers the computer and transfers its legal title to the customer on the same date. The customer pays $420 upfront. The computer sells for $300 and the technical support sells for $120. Okay. All right. Now this is the price given, that $300 for computers, $120 for technical support. The customer has paid upfront how much? The entire amount. All right. So first we will identify the contract. CPTAR. What is point 1? C. C means identify the contract. So this is an agreement between Wade and its customer for provision of goods and services. What is good? Computer. What is services? Technical support. Step number 2, identify the separate performance obligation. Now, what do you mean by separate performance obligation? Separate performance obligation, one of the parameters to know whether this is a separate performance obligation or not is to figure out whether the service, just a second, don't know what's wrong with this PC. It's acting weird today. No worries, we are even more determined. Yeah. Separate performance obligation means can be sold separately. If any good or service can be sold separately, if it can be provided separately without being bundled with any other product, as in it has its own significance. Now I can provide computer separately, I can sell computer separately, I can also provide technical support separately, right? I can provide the services of technical support separately, and thereby this is a separate performance obligation. A supply of computer, a supply of technical support. What is the transaction price? The total price. Always remember, T means transaction, T means total price of the contract. Total price of the contract. Allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation in the contract. Now this is done on the basis of standalone prices, and in this case the standalone prices are given and their total is same, so we do not need to do the pro rata allocation, right? See, more often than not it generally happens that the total transaction price is less than the total of standalone price, but if it is equal, then that's great. You don't need to do pro rata allocation. That has already been done for you here. That has been already done for you. All right. Now what is step 5? CPTAR. R stands for recognize revenue. So control over the computer has been passed to the customer. So the full revenue, see, what does this line say? Just read this slowly. Recognize revenue when a performance obligation is satisfied. That means that you were supposed to do certain performance obligation. You were supposed to provide certain good or services. So as soon as you provide a particular good or service, identify, recognize the revenue pertaining to it. So for instance, the revenue pertaining to computer was $300. And when can you say that you have satisfied the performance obligation of providing computers? When you hand over the title, and that has been done on the same day. So out of two performance obligation, this performance obligation of providing computer, of supply of computer, has been done on the same day. So we can recognize $300 immediately. All right. The technical support is provided over time. See, now the thing with technical services that you can't just provide it then and there. Read the question. Services are provided over a period of time. Technical support will be provided for 12 months, right? So for, let's say, every month we will go there and provide technical service. Now this is over the period of time. What is this computer? This is point in time. This computer is provided point in time. The delivery is given then and there, point in time. But this technical support is done over the period of time, right? For 12 months. That is 12 months. So how will we recognize the revenue pertaining to services? $120 should be recognized every month. The technical support is provided over time, so revenue from this should be recognized over time. In the year ended on 31st December 2011, revenue of $10, that is for 1 month, should be recognized from the provisions of technical support. See, what do you mean? This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, this is just one straight line. Let's just assume. All right, now we have provided, there were two performance obligation. One was that of computer and the other one was that of services, technical services, tech services. Now computer is provided, all this performance obligation is satisfied right now, right over here. This is called point in time. At this point of time only this is satisfied. But this technical services, they will be provided over the period of 12 months over time. This means this performance obligation will take time of 12 months to get completed. So one option is that we will recognize the revenue only when the performance obligation is satisfied after 12 months. Now this is not as per the matching concept of accounts, because every month we are providing a little service. Every month we are providing a little service. Every month we are providing a little service, right? So what is the transaction price allocated to this performance obligation? $120. All right. So after every month, what should be recognized as revenue? $10. And let's just say after year one only, after first month only, we have 31st December. This is our balance sheet date. So till this date, the revenue recognized in books should be $10, right? And this will be recognized after every passing month. We will recognize $10, $10, $10. All right, this is how it happens, because this performance obligation is getting satisfied with the passage of time. Slowly every month this performance obligation is getting satisfied. All right, now we have discussed all these 5 steps in much more detail, and so are they doing in text right now. Identify the contract. So there must exist an agreement between the two or more parties. Just a second. Yeah, an agreement between two or more parties that creates enforceable rights and obligations. All right, a contract can be in writing, orally, as I told you, but more often than not, to have a written contract is a normal business practice. All right, an entity can have only account for revenue if the contract meets the following criteria: the parties to the contract have approved the contract, okay, and are committed to perform their respective obligations. And if one of the parties part of the contract but still they are not committed to perform the service obligation, they are not in the position to give the services or goods promised, then you cannot recognize revenue. The entity can identify each party's right regarding the goods or services to be transferred. So it should be very clear contract. It cannot be an ambiguous contract. the goods or services to be transferred should be mentioned clearly. The payment terms, the consideration given for transfer of goods and services should be mentioned clearly. The contract should have a commercial substance. All right, it should have a commercial substance. It should be commercial in nature. And this is a very important line. This is a very important line. What does this say? It is probable that the entity will collect the consideration to which it will be entitled in exchange for the goods or services that will be transferred to the customer. Probable that the entity will collect the consideration. So even if there exists a contract, even if the goods and services are, specifically mentioned, even if the commercial substance exists, even if the payment terms are mentioned, all these things are there. You are about to provide goods and services, but the probability of receiving consideration, cash inflow, consideration to be received, if that is not probable, you cannot recognize revenue. This is a very important point. What does this mean? So you entered into a contract. All right, you entered into a contract, you were into a contract, and you are supposed to provide goods and services which you have manufactured, or are in the process of manufacturing. All the important points exist, but if the total revenue which you expected was, if the, as per the contract, the total revenue was, let's say, $10,000. If the total revenue was $10,000 and you expect that you will only get $8,000 out of this contract, though as per contract it is $10,000, but the expectation is that the customer may not pay that much amount, or there might be certain irregularities or whatsoever. There can be any reason, but the only probability that you have right now is that you will end up receiving $8,000, even though the contract is for $10,000. All right, even though the contract is for $10,000, but you will recognize only $8,000. Why? Because that is the only amount which is probable, right? Because that is the only amount which is probable. Let's go through this example. Aluna has a year end on 31st December 2011. On 30th September 2011, Aluna signed a contract with a customer to provide them with an asset on 31st December 2011. Control over the asset passed to the customer on the same date. The customer will pay $1 million on 30th June 2012. By 31st December 2011, Aluna did not believe that it was probable that it would collect the consideration. It was probable that it would collect the consideration. It did not believe that. There was no probability of receiving the consideration. Therefore, the contract cannot be accounted and no revenue should be recognized. See, earlier what we used to do before this standard, see, since this ACCA is done by students from different parts of the world. So if in your country the local gap was somewhere in consensus with IFRS 15, this standard, then it's fine. But in most of the local gaps before IFRS, as far as I remember, for the countries that I've read the standards, what used to happen, that we used to book the revenue with entire amount. Let's just say how much, $1 million on the date of providing the goods and service, and then we used to book a bad debt of $1 million. Now what is that this doing? This is inflating the revenue and also inflating your expenses. So your total revenue, let's say, become $100 million. Let's just say your total revenue is for the year, let's just say that your total revenue for the year is $1.5 million. $1.5 million, out of which $1 million pertains to this entry which has been considered as bad debt. Now don't you feel, out of this $1.5 million, $1 million is shown as bad debt in profit and loss. This is your sales, this is your bad debt. Don't you think this is unnecessary inflation? Actual revenue is just $0.5 million. So to curb such malpractices, to curb such window dressing, what revenue this new standard says, that you will only book that amount as revenue which you consider probable of being received. Don't book that amount first as revenue. Don't book that amount first as revenue and then say, oh, this was a bad debt, so now I'll show this as bad debt. You cannot do that. Just book the amount which you expect, which is probable that you will be receiving. All right. What does step 2 says? Identifying the separate performance obligation. What are the separate performance obligation? Performance obligation are the promises, all right, to transfer goods or services. Some contract contains more than one performance obligation, like computer and service. As we discussed, there can be computer, there can be technical service. This is more than one performance obligation. See again, a customer, an entity may enter into a contract with a customer to sell a car and 1 free year of servicing, right? So a distinct performance obligation, a separate performance obligation within a contract must be identified. And where did I tell you that how do we, figure out that what is a performance obligation? If any particular good or service is capable of being provided on its own. If a good or service can be provided standalone on its own, then that is a separate performance obligation. Performance obligations may not be limited to goods or services that are explicitly stated in the contract. An entity's customary business practices, published policies, or specified statements may create an expectation that the entity will transfer a good or service to the customer. Now, what does this line mean? See, let's just say that there is a company, a car manufacturing company, that just charges for the car. This is the car. And it is so sure about the quality of its car. It has such a good brand value, such a good engineer, such a good know-how of how to make a good car. They say that we provide our car is so good that it will face no issues in first 1 year of its service, first 1 year of its use. You require absolutely no service, right? 1 year of use, you can use it the way you want, and it won't it won't perform, it won't malfunction. But even if it does, we will provide you free service. Now this is their practice. They are such a good business practitioners. They want to build a big brand name, big goodwill in the market, that they say that we provide free services customary. It's not a part of contract. Providing free service is nowhere written in the mutual contract. It's just their business practice. What is this? This is a goodwill business practice. So even this is a performance obligation, though it is not a part of contract. Performance obligation need not be limited to the goods and services mentioned in the contract. Now, while purchasing car, you will have paperwork for car. You will have the papers which gives you ownership of the car, but nowhere in the papers is it mentioned that you are entitled to this free service. No, you are not entitled to this free service as per contract, but only it's just that this is a business practice, a published policy by a company, that we will give you services free of cost. So even this is a performance obligation. All right. And if an entity must decide if the nature of a performance obligation is to provide the specified goods or services itself, that is and as a principle that it itself will provide the services, or to arrange for another party to provide the goods or services. If an entity is an agent, then the revenue is recognized based on the fee or commission. See, let's just say that there are certain middle business people known as agents. Now, let's just say that you wanted to take classes for SBI, this F7FR, financial reporting. All right, you contacted a coaching center, AR Finance Room. All right, you contacted them. Now it can happen that this is your coaching class. CC is the word, coaching class. Now it can happen that they have the ownership for the classes, they owe these classes, so they provide you this. Okay, this is not the classes, by the way. This is some home or something. Wait a second, let me rub this. Yeah, so it may happen that these coaching classes have a classes recorded, have the ownership of the classes, and they will provide you with those classes. All right, they will provide you with the service. This is a student, this is you. This is a one way. Here, this coaching class is a principal, and they charge, let's say, $10 for a particular class. Fair enough. Or it may happen that they go out, they reach out to some another faculty, some another coaching class, and they say, oh, we have a student here, we have a student base, he or she needs a class of FR. Why don't you why don't you provide us the classes, because we don't have the classes. Now this person will provide classes at, let's say, $12. He says, this person provides classes at $10. The price is same, $10, but this coaching class charges the student $12. Now this is services provided directly by this teacher, by this faculty to the student for $12, out of which $10 is the fees of faculty and $2 is the commission charge of coaching class. Now what will be the revenue model for coaching class? Will coaching class show in their profit and loss that their revenue was $12 and cost was $10 because they incurred they manage the classes, or will they show it like this, that their revenue is only $2 because this is the fee or commission they are entitled for? So IFRS 15 says that if an entity is an agent, then the revenue is recognized based on the fee or commission they are entitled to. Right? It may happen. Let me make it a bit easy for you. Let me just rub this and just let's discuss this once again. See, these are students and this is a faculty. Wow, what a faculty. This is not me, by the way. All right. Now this is a faculty. Now student needs a faculty who can teach them very good FR. And this faculty is very good in teaching FR, but he needs students. He does not know how to get students, where to reach them. Now there is an agency in between. All right. Now what this agency says, what this person says, let me make, instead of agency, let me say a person. The word agency would have been equally accurate, but let's just make another person. Now this person is someone who has a good hold in students. He knows how to get students, how to reach them, and he knows faculties as well. So he says, this person says to this faculty that I will bring you one student, and for every one student I will charge $1 as my commission or fee. All right. This faculty says, okay, I will charge $10 for my services, $1 against the fee that I'm giving you, I will charge $11. All right. Students will be like, fine, we will pay $11 for each class. So technically you are paying $11 to this agent because he is the front face. You don't know the faculty personally. You are just getting this online. Now this agent is the face. You are paying this agent $11. This agent keeps his part of $1 and transfers the fee of $10 to the faculty. Now this is in the nature of agent. He is not recording classes on his own. He is not procuring classes on his own. He is not deciding the content of the classes. He is not the one who's telling how long the classes should be, how the content should be, what should be the book used, how many questions should be practiced. Nothing. He has nothing to do. All he has to do is just be an agent in between. So if such services are provided by an agent, he won't recognize this as $11 revenue and $10 cost. No, he will recognize this only as $1 of revenue. That is the fee or commission he is entitled to. All right, let's go through this example. Rosemary's revenue includes $2 million for goods it sold acting as an agent for Ellen. Rosemary earned a commission of 20% on these sales and remitted the difference of 1.6 million. All right, to Ellen. How should the agency shall be treated in Rosemary's statement of account in profit and loss? So it should be, Rosemary should not have included $2 million in its revenue. Why? The revenue should only be 40,000 of commission. 40,000 how? $2 million into 20%. This should have been the only revenue that should have been charged. But on the contrary, Rosemary has included $2 million in its revenue. So it will reverse it. Revenue will be debited. This is a reversal entry. Reversal of excess revenue booked. Reversal of excess revenue booked. All right. Okay. So third point was CP. Okay. Don't see in your book as well. What is the code? CPTAR. C is identify the contract. P is identify the performance obligations. T is determine the transaction price. Determine the transaction price. Transaction price is equals to total price of the contract. The transaction price is the amount of consideration to which an entity expects to be entitled in exchange of transferring promised goods or services. What is the word here? Dear students, all my smart students, expects. Expects. This means not entitled. The word used here is not entitled. Entitled is something which you have contractual liability to. But the word used here is expect. That is what you expect to receive. If the contract was for $10,000, but you expect that you may end up receiving only $7,000, or let's say $8,000, then what is the transaction price? Is it $10,000 or $8,000? $8,000, because that is what you expect to receive. All right. Amount is not what you are entitled to. Your consideration. See, what is transaction price? Another word for transaction price is consideration. All right. And what did we study just a few minutes ago? What did I tell you? Consideration is what you expect to receive and not entitled to receive. All right. Okay, sir. Now this, okay, yeah, amount collected on behalf of third parties, amounts collected on behalf of third parties are excluded. Now if you receive certain amounts as a pure agent, that is you are not earning profit here. Let's just say that you are providing certain services, and while in order to provide those services you are supposed to pay some tax. Let's say the cost of providing services that you have charged is $10,000, and you're supposed to pay $1,800 as tax to government. So this is 11,800 that you charge to your customer. Now what will be your revenue? Will it be $10,000 or $1,800? It will be $10,000. Why? Excuse me. You know, it's taking a second, that lag of a second to get that particular color or something. Just a second. Yeah, what is written here? Amount collected on behalf of third parties are excluded. So if you are remitting an amount as it is, if you are just collecting it here and remitting it to another party, that is not part of revenue. All right, so you won't show revenue of 11,800, you will show revenue of 10,000. You will show revenue of 10,000 only. 1,800 is tax. 10,000 is your revenue, 1,800 is your tax. This is not a part of your revenue because you're collecting it on behalf of third party. Now this is an important line. What all transaction price is made of? What all considerations are made of? See, fixed amounts, whatever is fixed, whatever is variable, or both. So more than this is an important paragraph. Mark this important. That what all is included in variable in consideration? Variable consideration. If variable consideration means, if you say, let's just say that as per the contract it is mentioned that if you provide the goods within 5 months, you shall be entitled to incentive of $100. If you provide the goods within 6 months, you shall be entitled to benefit or incentive of $50. And if you provide in 7 months the good or service, you shall be entitled to incentive of $10. Anything beyond 7 months will be zero. There will be absolutely no incentive. Now as per your estimation, you expect that I may end up being providing this in 6 months time. $50 is the variable consideration that you expect to receive. Now that is expected to be received. Yes, variable consideration, this is what we call variable consideration, will be part of it. The existence of a significant financing component in the contract. See, this is important line again. Financing component means, let's just say that you sold a good. You sold a good on 1st January 2020. 1st January 2020 you sold a good, and you will for $10,000. But you will receive this $10,000 on 31st December 2021, after 2 years. 1 year here plus 1 year here. So you are entitled to receive this $10,000 after 2 years. Now tell me honestly, had you sold this goods right now on this date, would you have charged the same amount? Would you have charged the same amount if you would have sold this product which is for which you are charging $10,000, which you will be getting after 2 years, would you have received or charged the same amount if you're getting money right now? Don't you think this also has a component of interest, a hidden component of interest, because you are getting receive consideration after 2 years? So this has a financing component to it, financing component attached within this price, right? This $10,000 is not just revenue, but it also includes a part of financing component, because you are giving a facility to get take the payment after 2 years. That's a long time, man. For 2 years you won't receive payment, so you will take out the, and let's say that your rate of interest is 10% per year. Your money grows by 10% per year, and you are getting this $10,000 after 2 years. So this means, what is the present value of this money? You are getting $10,000 after 2 years when the rate of interest is 10. You will divide this $10,000 by rate of interest of 10% for 2 years, and whatever amount you get is your revenue. 10,000, 1 divided by 1.1 into 10,000, 8264. This is your revenue, the present value of money, that this 10,000 is worth 8264 today, the day you are selling the product, the day you are satisfying the performance obligation. And the remaining amount of 1736 is a interest expense and cost that you're charging. You're charging interest income because you're getting money out of after 2 years. So when you will book your revenue, you will book only 8264. When you will book your interest income, you will pick this amount as interest income and this as your revenue. So your consideration, your transaction price should be settled, should be adjusted for variable consideration, should be adjusted for time value of money, financing component. Non-cash consideration. Non-cash consideration means if you are getting something in return which is not cash, so you will take the fair value of the same and include it in the revenue. Let's say you are selling a machine. All right, and what you're charging for that is you're selling this to this guy, and what this guy is giving you is $10,000 plus, let's say, a car of his. He has a car which you like very much, so you said, okay, I'll give you the machine, just pay me $10,000 and give me car along. So that would be fine for the cost of this machine. So what will be the revenue? This is you, the machine maker. What will be the revenue for you? For you, it will be $10,000 plus fair value of the car. So even non-cash considerations are converted to the best value, are estimated to the best value and considered as revenue if that is what you are receiving in consideration. All right. This is my favorite point. Consideration payable to customer. Consideration payable to customer. Customer pays the consideration, and what is this? Is not consideration paid by customer. What is written here? Consideration payable to a customer. Strange, isn't it? When does a customer pays a consideration as a custom? Excuse me. When does someone pay a consideration to customer? Like, I'm giving you goods and services as well, and I'm paying you as well. Wow. Does it happen in real life? Yes, it happens. It happens with you every day. Don't believe it? Okay. So you charge your mobile phones on Paytm, on PayPal, you get cash back. What do you get? You get cash back. So you are getting the services of mobile recharge as well as you are getting consideration of cashback. Companies is paying you consideration. You are their customer, right? You are their customer and they are paying you the consideration. Cashback. If you pay your credit card bills on Cred is providing you services as well as giving you cash back. Biggest example of this is cashback. that sometimes the service provider gives offers to kind of lure and to kind of impress their customers, so they pay a certain amount. Let's just say that you paid 100 rupees to Paytm or PayPal, whatever is more common in your part of the world, PayPal or Paytm. These are e-wallets. You pay 100 rupees or $100, let's just say, not rupees, dollars. You pay $100 to PayPal for a service and you get $10 as cashback. You receive $10 as cashback. Now this is the profit and loss of Paytm or PayPal. Now what they used to do earlier was, before this IFRS came into place, they used to book revenue of $100 and promotional expenses, promotion or discount or whatever, of $10. Now aren't they inflating their books? See, the net impact on profit and loss is same, $90. Booking revenue of $100, booking cost of $10, the net impact on profit and loss is same, $90. But isn't it a more window dressed show? Because you are inflating your revenue figures, your sales are getting inflated unnecessarily. This is called window dressing of books of accounts. This is called window dressing of books of accounts, inflating your books of accounts. All right. So what does the standard say? No, that if you have paid, just a second, let it erase. Yeah. What does this standard says? This standard says that if you have paid any consideration to a customer, deducted, what will be the total amount of revenue that you can book here is $90. So you have to consider the effect of any consideration payable to customer. So if any consideration is paid to customer, any discount is paid back, any cashback is given, then that should be subtracted and net revenue should be written. Net revenue should be written. Okay. All right, sir. Now this is financing. This is nothing but discussion of this significant financing component in the contract. In determining the transaction price, an entity must consider if the timing of payment provides customer or entity with a significant financing benefit. That if you are receiving money way too after long, right? So this has a hidden financing component hidden in this. This is kind of a loan that you're giving. That you're giving something worth $10,000 and you say pay me after 2 years. That means you're kind of giving them a benefit, a kind of loan. So the loan will always have a component of interest. All right. So if there is a significant financing component, then the consideration receivable needs to be discounted to present value. This is what we did. We discounted 10,000 that was receivable after 2 years to its present value, because it was after 2 years. That's why here we put 2. All right. This is number of years. This is a simple mathematical formula of present value. 1 divided by 1 plus rate of interest to the power number of years. Right, what was the rate of interest here? 10%. 1 plus 10 upon 100 to the power 2 equals to 1 plus 1.1 to the power 2. All right, so do what? Take your calculators, put 1 divided by 1.1, put equal to ones, and then put equal to twos. Again, 1 divided by 1.1. Now tab your equal to 1 button once for year 1 and tab it twice for year 2. And you have 0.826 as your present value factor. When you multiply this 0.826 with this figure, 10,000, what you get is your present value of money, 8264. All right, this is how we bring any value to its present value. See, then the receivable needs to be discounted at the present value using rate at which the customer would borrow. The following may indicate existence of significant financing influence. Now, how would you know that the financing component or a financing benefit is hidden? So the difference between the amount of promised consideration and the cash selling price. Cash selling price means if the customer pays you right now, let's just say you are giving them the price of $10,000, that if you pay me after 2 years $10,000, but if you pay me right now I'll give you for $8264. Then this means this is the cash price. This is what we call cash price. If someone pays in cash. So if there's a major difference between the cash price and the amount that he is charging, that if he receives after a point of time, then this difference is a significant financing component. Or the length of time between the transfer of promised good or service to customer and payment date. Again, if you are saying that the goods are transferred today, but the payment is made 2 years down the line, after 2 years, there's a big gap, man. How can someone not ask for his money which he was supposed to receive today? He is happy receiving it after 2 years without any extra charges. That's not possible, right? Read this question, try to do it on your own. Rude enters into a contract with customer to sell a equipment on 31st December 2011. Control of the equipment transfers to the customer on that date. The price stated in the contract is $1 million and is due on 31st December 2013. The good was transferred on 31st December 2011. The amount is payable after 2 years. Interest rate is, this is the same example which we discussed here, right? What should be the transaction be accounted for? So what is the amount payable? $1 million. $1 million into, we have to bring this to present value. 1 divided by 1 plus rate of interest 10% to the power number of years. This will be 826400. 826400. So this will be your revenue. This will be our revenue. And the remaining amount, which was how much? We just calculated 1736. Will be our finance cost, interest. How will we book this? Explain how this transaction should be accounted. This is how it should be accounted. So how will we write answer? Let us just go through the answer once to so that I can make you understand how to write this answer. See. Question number 1. Where is question number 1? Yeah. These are your amounts. The difference was that of approximation. See, how will this happen? That this will be our revenue. Each year the discount on the receivable will be unwound by 10%. Alright, each year we will take it further by 10%, taking to increase the finance income. For the year ended on 31st December 2012, this means that the receivable increases by 825,645, and with 82645 being shown as finance income in the statement of profit or loss, this would make the receivable 909091 at 31st December 2022. See, what has happened is, now you are, this is the date 31st December. Just a second, guys. Yeah, date is 31st December. What was the date on which the good was transferred? 2021. So we should recognize an amount which we calculated, present value of the amount, as a receivable. Revenue account, excuse me, receivable account debit to revenue account credit. Eight two six 446, 826 446, 826 446. All right. Now this is the present value which we brought to its present value by using 10% as the present value factor, right? We did the now for this year we will book the finance income as well, because this has a financing component. Finance income will be booked finance income. We rub this will be credited. Understand this from a general entries point of view. Now I will have what? I will have a finance income which will increase by 10% because I brought it back to the present value by 10%. Finance income account credit. This is income because this is income, right? By how much? 826,446. See, first I divided it by 10%. Now I will multiply this by 10%. This is 826,446 into 10%, which is 82,645, your finance income. Now with every passing year, we will increase our receivable because we are entitled to receive $1 million, right? So we will increase our receivable by finance income, 82,645. Now this is end of year one. Now what is your receivable in balance sheet? This is your balance sheet. This is your receivable. What is a receivable? It was booked earlier at 826,446 plus 82645. This is 826,446 plus 82645. This is equal to 909091. This is a receivable right now. Now this is year one ends. Now you will start year two. Now year two you will again book this income at the end of year two. You will book for 10% on this amount, right? Finance income is calculated on receivable. What is the value of your receivable? 909091. What is the percentage? 10%. This becomes 90909 and this increases your receivable. Alright, by 90909. Now what is the total receivable? This was a total receivable. You increased it by this amount. Now what is the total receivable? See, total receivable is 90909 that you created this year plus 909091. This is your total receivable. This will be 1 million always if your calculation is right. Alright. Now after 2 years you are supposed to receive it, right? So this will get credited. And what will get debited? Cash account debit. What will you receive after 1 year? Cash. So this cancels this receivable. You understand this whole system? See, first we bring to its present value. Recognize the revenue with that amount. Now, how did we bring it to its present value? By dividing it by 10%, 1 plus 10% for 2 years. So now we have to take it forward. This was bringing to present value. Now we are taking it to its forward value. So we increase it by 10% and book that as finance income for year one. Then what is the total value of receivables? This is what it was booked. This is how it got increased. This is your balance sheet amount. Now again we will take another step. This was step number 1. Step 1 for 10%. Now from here to here we will take step 2. Alright. And this increases by another 10% and it reaches to its original value after 2 years. And we receive the cash and the receivable gets credited. Alright. This is what is written here. They have just done it till year 1 end and we have also included year 2 end for our discussion. That how to provide for year 2 end as well. Okay. Let's go to question number 2. Come on, quick. Now this consideration payable to a customer we have already discussed. I told you example of cashback. Let's look at its question. Golden Gate enters into a contract with a major chain of retail stores. The customer commits to buy at least $20 million of products over the next 12 months. The terms of the contract required Golden Gate to make a payment of $1 million to compensate the customer for changes that will need to make it retail stores to accommodate the product. So here Golden Gate, who's supposed to provide goods will also provide $1 million to customer, so that it can make certain changes in its retail store so that it can accommodate the product. How much revenue should be recognized? Now what he will receive? 20 million. In order to receive this 20 million, what this Golden Gate has to spend? $1 million. So what is the net revenue? And when is this payable? The terms of the contract requires Golden Gate to make a payment of $1 million. All right. By 31st December 2011, Golden Gate has transferred a product with sales value of $4 million to the customer. See, what is this example? It says that there is a service provider or a goods provider called Golden Gate. It will provide goods worth $20 million to a retail store. But that retail store will also need $1 million so that it can revamp its retail store. And by the year end, how much goods have been provided? 4 million of the $4 million goods. $4 million of goods are provided till year end. So the payment made to the customer is not in exchange of a distinct good or service. Therefore, $1 million paid to a customer is a reduction of the transaction price. All right, this will be reduced from the transaction price because this is consideration payable to a customer. The total transaction price is being reduced by 5%. See how this works. If the retail store buys goods worth $20 million, then it gets cashback of $1 million. What is the percentage here? What is the percentage of cashback? 1 divided by 20 into 100. This is how much? 5%. So what is the percentage of cashback? 5%. Now what is the sales being done till now? $4 million. Out of this, how much is cashback? 5%. How much is revenue not recognized? 5%. How much revenue will we recognize? 95%. Because 5% is discount or cashback, not discount. Cashback, right? Because we are supposed to recognize only net income always, right? And 5% is a discount. That means what is the income? 95% is the net amount. 95% is the net amount, and thereby we will recognize 95% of $4 million, which is $3.8 million. All right, it's pretty simple, guys. We have to always provide for net revenue if we are giving anything to the customer. Now we are giving $1 million against $20 million of revenue, but the revenue recognized till date is only $4 million. So we will accordingly reduce it by the percentage. We won't subtract. We won't do like this: $4 million minus $1 million. $3 million is revenue, because when the next 16 million revenue you will book, what will you subtract here? You have already taken entire discount in 4 million only. You will do the pro rata allotment. You will say that when we purchase goods worth $20 million, we get discount of $1 million. We get rupees $1 million. We get $1 million, right? Thereby the percentage is 5% of discount. That means what is the revenue? 95%. So if we have sold $4 million goods, that means 95% is the net amount, which is 3.8. Now step 4, allocate the transaction price. So what have I told you? That we allocate the transaction price to separate performance obligation on the basis of stand-alone selling price. All right. In relation to bundled sales, any discount should be allocated across each component in the transaction. Should only be allocated to a specific component if that component is regularly sold separately at a discount. So if we are bundling the services and goods, all right, this is a very straightforward line. If this is a very straightforward line which says that if you are bundling a good, see, let's just say we are providing 4 goods or services in total, 1, 2, 3, 4. The standalone price for them is $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000. Total cost standalone is $10,000. But we are providing this as a bundle of goods and services in a contract for $8,500. Now, what is the discount that we are providing? We are providing this discount of what? $1,500, right? Just a second. We are providing this for $1,500, right? So this discount of $1,500, let me just erase it so that I can write it. Yeah, on the other side. All right, so we are providing the set of this goods and services as a bundled product of goods and services for $8,500. Now, what have I asked you? I have asked you to allocate this 8,500 on the ratio of this standalone price. Like how 8,500 into 1 divided by 10, 8,500 into 2 divided by 10. Right? This way we are allocating the discount of $1,500 to all the four items, to all the four performance obligations equally on the basis of their standalone price in the equal ratio. But if it is specifically mentioned in the question that the discount given as a bundle pertains to a specific goods or item, all right, then we would allocate that discount. Let's just say it's mentioned that 1,500 of the discount is attributable only to product 4. So what I'll do is for rest all I'll keep the same price, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and for product 4 I will provide the discount and make it $2,500. Even then this is $8,500. But this will happen only when it is mentioned that the decrease in the contract price or the discount specifically pertains to a particular good. This is a very rare case. All right, won't happen more often than not. The allocation on the basis of standalone price is what expected out of us. See, Shred sells a machine and 1 year's free technical support for $100,000. It usually sells the machine for $95,000 but does not sell technical support for this machine as a standalone product. It does not sell it as a standalone product. Other support services offered by Shred attract a markup of 50%. It is expected that the technical support will cost Shred $20,000. How much of the transaction price should be allocated to machine and to that of the technical support? See, this is a very good question. Mark this as important that you'll have to revise before going to the exams. What does this say? That it's providing a machine and a free technical support for $100,000. It usually sells the machine for $95,000 but does not sell the technical support for this machine as a standalone product. But the other services that Shred provide attracts a markup of 50%. So let's just say the cost is 1 rupee, he charges 1.5. The cost is $20,000, it charges $30,000. So for services, the technical support services are what? $20,000 will be provided for $30,000. The standalone price would have been $30,000. What does this mean is that the cost to provide this free technical service is $20,000, right? And what is the markup here? 0.5. This means the total price should be 1 to 1.5, 1 for the cost and 0.5 for the markup, right? 20,000 is the cost and it is provided at 50% markup, which means 20,000 into 150% is your total price. Should have been your total price, which is 30,000. So kind of your standalone prices are 30,000 for services and 95,000 for machine, which makes this 1,25,000 or $125,000. But the amount you're charging is 1 lakh in total. All right. Let's just see how they have written this in the question. In the answer for this. See, just writing the answer won't only fetch you marks. You have to write the answer in a particular way where you explain the stuff, right? See, that's why going through the answers which are comparatively easy is also very important. $95,000, all right, based on the observable evidence. There is no observable selling price for the technical support. Therefore, it is calculated as 30,000. All right, the total standalone pricing would be 1,25,000. However, total consideration receivable is only 1 lakh. So we'll use the same way out. Instead of writing this in this paragraph format, you can write it loud it down in the table format that I've told you. What is first service? What is machine and technical support? Machine and technical support. What is standalone price? Standalone price 95,000 for machine and 30,000 for technical support. This is 1,25,000, 1,25,000 as you would like to call it. The total contract price, transaction price which we are charging is 1 lakh. Now when we allocate this in this ratio, this would be 95,000 into 100 divided by 125, right? You get this? $76,000 and this will be 24,000. Now this will be your what's wrong with this? Excuse me guys. This pen shifting is taking a bit time in this lecture. I don't know what's wrong with the PC. The PC is fine. Why it's taking a bit of time here today? To check it. See, I've selected pen, still it takes a couple of strokes for it to come as dot. Don't know what's wrong. Alright, no worries. So this 76,000 will be your allocation of transaction price to machine, and this 24,000 will be your allocation of transaction price to technical support. Alright, and they will get recognized as soon as the different performance obligation gets satisfied. When the machine is delivered, 76,000 will be recognized. When the this technical support services are provided, this 24,000 will be recognized. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is just get the concepts and practice enough questions, which both the things which we are going to do in the class itself. So you need not worry at all. All right, recognize the revenue. Now we recognize the revenue when the performance obligation is satisfied, right? For each performance obligation identified, an entity must determine at contract inception whether it satisfies the performance obligation over time or point in time. Now you remember a few minutes ago in the same lecture only we talked about this. Over time or point in time. Right, we need to figure this out, that whether a contra performance obligation is getting satisfied at a point in time or at over time. All right, let's do what? You just go through the concept still here for revenue, and then we shall start with this point in the next lecture. But then go through whatever has been discussed in the class. This is one very important standard, and go through these couple of questions once again. And see, I've already discussed with you all the 5 steps. We already know how it takes further from here, how it goes further from here, right? So just read this step 5, revenue, recognize revenue. Just read it once before watching the next lecture, and then we shall discuss this in detail. All right, see you in the next lecture. Bye.